I've never punished my son.
What? I think that's why I'm in such a weird crisis right now in terms of like my life goals, my life direction, and all of this sort of stuff. It's like I've got nothing to show my dad, or my dad's not here for me to say, is this
Yeah.
the right thing to do?
That's the traditional way. But we've got traditional, which is 50 years ago, and then we got traditional, which is 1400 years ago. So which one
Yeah.
would I pick? And really,
Yeah.
this was a paradigm shift for me. Okay, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Episode 169, right? Damn, what's that?
Yeah. Look at us going up the big numbers.
Yeah, man. How's it going?
It's hot. We had like the hottest day of the year
Wasn't it like the hottest day in history?
in the UK. Yeah, I think so. That
Yeah,
was,
crazy.
intense.
Was it? Did it reach like 40 where you were?
No, where I was, the highest my thing said was 37.
Okay, I mean, still plenty hot for a country that's not really used to that.
Yeah, I think Heathrow was 40 or 41.
Crazy.
That was the highest measured. Yeah,
Crazy.
I mean, it's pretty insane. What was I doing? Oh, I was in an air-conditioned office that day. But I did step out to get to my car. I was out, actually. I had to obviously get to the office and all of this sort of stuff. But I was transporting stock into my car across a really hot car park. And I was wearing a black top, like a all black outfit. And I was like a sun magnet. It was horrendous.
Or how did your family cope?
Well, my family,
Because they weren't in the office. Okay.
Yeah,
Do schools have ACs in the UK or no?
I don't know about my son's school. I don't think it does. A lot of schools had closed for those 2 days, so the Monday and the Tuesday.
Wow.
But my son's school was persevered, and they carried on, and they had to come in with their PE kits, the shorts and a t-shirt instead of your normal uniform. And apparently they had all the windows open, all this other stuff. But no, it has been interesting. I can't really recall it being this hot before, in recent history.
The media, really reminds you of those record-breaking temperatures every year.
Absolutely.
I remember when I was teaching, in the UK, in the secondary school I was teaching in, it was, June-ish, and it was probably 28, something like that. Yeah, and those kind of days, it was kind of unbearable. And I remember there was no AC.
Yeah, the society isn't necessarily built for it, or the infrastructure, sorry, is a better word. It's not necessarily built for that kind of heat. Even things like apparently like railways have to be pre-stressed or stress tested or whatever. I can't remember what the word was, but some certain terminology to prepare them for hot weather. And that's what we do in hot countries. But obviously here, everything comes to a standstill. I mean, the UK it's built for mild weather. They can't handle snow. They can't handle heat.
Yeah.
Any other extremes they can't handle. But keep it overcast with light rain and you're good to go.
Yeah. I mean, makes you think ACs will be a really big business all over Europe, more and more.
Yeah, well, it's climate change science, baby.
Yeah.
And do you know what I hate the most, right? So I put on, I don't have a TV, like normal TV channels and stuff. So I don't usually watch the news unless it's on a YouTube video. There's like a 20-minute like news headline, breaking news thing about the hot weather. So I clicked it. It was like Sky News or something. The reporter was really irritating me and all of the mainstream media irritates me when it comes to climate change. Not to go on to a huge tangent, but they always like, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to do this. And it's so easy for them to put the blame on the individual person when the biggest polluters are the corporations and those holding the bags.
Yeah.
But no one ever points a finger at them,
Yeah.
And it's easier to just, shout at the little guy and tell him to recycle his milk cartons.
Yes.
So...
I heard that a few times, that... actually, maybe you saw this video, maybe that's the video you're talking about. There was a video about how, I think it was BP, they created the whole idea of, was it carbon credits, or they did a huge campaign. Like it was an advertising campaign, which basically was promoting the idea that everyone should take responsibility for their own impact on the climate. And that apparently caused a lot of people to start thinking that way, where it's like, yeah, we need to do our part, and people forgot. I mean, the people that put that perception into the world was an oil company, you know.
Yeah, no
And
doubt.
I do believe in, obviously, Muslims all believe in individual responsibility for everything, right? So even if, you know, companies or governments are in charge of, are not are responsible for 99% of problems climate wise, if I'm responsible for 1%, I'm going to be asked about 1%, right? So need to have answers for that. But yeah, we have to know the ultimately who has the power to, like, for example, sugar tax, right? You know, sugar tax in the UK, as soon as that was implemented, I'm sure that had huge impact on things, right? Good or bad, but it has a huge like impact. You know, Coca-Cola start changing their recipe. They start moving to zero, what's it called, Pepsi Max and this and that.
It impacted my taste buds, bro.
They're also paying for plastic bags. Again, boom, that straight away, as soon as that's implemented, straight away, like, it changes the whole thing. And us as individuals, we don't have that influence generally, right? But governments can do this stuff overnight. Just how we're seeing, like, in Germany now, because they don't want to, like, you know, do business with Russia or whatever. They want to avoid as much as possible. They're like causing the energy bills to go up. They're like, okay, actually, coal and natural gas, yeah, actually that is like environmentally friendly. Yeah, it's better than Russian gas for some reason, or coal and oil or whatever it is, yani. So yeah, governments hold a lot of power and in terms of setting the policies for these things. But at the same time, yani, we do our best. But anyway, bro, the topic I had, I hope you're not going to do one of those ones with me where it's like, yeah, I don't really think about this stuff. The topic is,
I'm preemptively saying you.
I started thinking about, I mean, I read a book like kind of around this, but then last week, because I was going to talk about this last week, but then we didn't get around to it. I realized, yeah, I said this to my wife, I've never punished my son.
What?
I've never punished my son, yeah. I'm guessing you have, right? Like most parents have. It's very like natural thing to do.
Pause. What do you define as punishment, so that we know?
So, yes, it's a good question. Basically, putting in place or giving a negative consequence for an action of his that wasn't a natural consequence.
That his action wasn't natural.
No, the consequence. If there's a natural consequence, for example, he has I don't know, milk and he spills it.
Yeah.
The natural consequence, if you spill milk, you can't have the milk now. Yeah. So that's not punishment because I didn't do that. He spilled the milk. Yeah. But I've never done something like he's messing around with the milk, therefore I take the milk off him. Or he hit his younger brother, which he's doing a lot these days. He hit his younger brother, so I don't know, put him in the corner. You know, he has to stay in the corner. I never done anything like that. Yes.
What, is that like a conscious choice you've made?
Oh, it is because if it's not, like, it comes naturally to punish, right? Okay. Like that's what we kind of that's what we tend to believe, right? Like carrot and stick. You know,
yeah.
So to go against that is very unnatural, definitely.
And not another final question: is that just you, or does your wife do the same thing?
I think pretty much my wife does the same thing. Yeah.
Because I was going to say the child's clearly going to have a favorite.
No, we never sat down and said, look, we're not going to punish him, but just. I read a few books, I shared a few ideas with my wife, and then it kind of just, I guess here and there we did talk about this, but it wasn't like a firm, like, okay, this is our policy, Yani. Wow. And actually, I said it to my wife the other day, like, did you realize we never punished him? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, I kind of like it, it's good. So for me, it was like a very active choice. For my wife, I don't know if she made the active choice, but she just ended up finding that it made sense, kind of thing.
And are your children
naughty?
Are they prone? Yeah, are they prone to misbehaving?
This is the thing. I don't know because I've only got one which is like the age where he might misbehave or whatever.
Yeah.
Even then, a lot of that you could put down to just the fact that he's like 2-3 years old, like terrible twos, etc. However, no, I think he's normal. Actually, maybe he's even quite well behaved. I'm not sure, but he's either average or he's well behaved. One of those two. And I think it's great, bro.
Wow. I'm shocked, bro. That doesn't compute in my mind at all. You know, since my boys are now, so Ilyas is 3 and Suleiman is 5, and Ilyas is now, he thinks he's untouchable. You know, he can do whatever he wants in terms of, especially with his brother, and they are now like that prime physical aggression, like always play fighting, wrestling, copying everything they do. They do everything together. But I see flashes of, you know, one's jealous of the other one, one's got something the other one has, or one's, you know, like, I'm trying to think of an example. Suleiman picked up some sort of toy the other day, and Ilyas wasn't touching it. Ilyas was doing something completely different. As soon as he sees Suleiman's got the toy, he runs over, screaming and trying to snatch it off him, etc. Suleiman, being the older one, and he feels actually he's quite good at this. He will put himself to the side and say, "Okay, fine." Like he might put up a bit of a challenge, but actually he has this concept of gender points, right? He always wants to get gender points, so he'll give in and be like, "Okay, fine, Ilyas, you can have it." And then Ilyas will hold it, put it down, walk off. And the little things like that. Now, that in my head, I'd have to tell him off for that. I have to teach him some sort of, you know, sharing, or teach him some sort of whatever.
Yeah.
But there's other things. There's more overt things of misbehavior. Like we'll tell Suleiman to do something, and he's being lazy, right? We'll tell him to clean his room, and he'll go to his room. We come back, and he's just like on the floor, lying down, not doing anything.
Yeah.
Or doing things super slowly on purpose, or not eating his food, for example, and wanting a snack instead of his food. Little things like this are the most common things. Bro, you know, I'm not saying my children are, you know, terrors. I think they're pretty normal kids.
Yeah.
Normal to my perspective. But yeah, I'm you know, telling them off almost every day, really. Not in a awful way, like they've done something really bad, but just a general way, because they're learning.
Yeah, you have to.
Oh, we have to now, do we? Do we have to now? I mean,
no. But
how do you do it?
No, you're talking about telling off.
Okay, well, this is what I meant by, you know,
telling off is different to punishing.
Okay, well, this is the definition, because your definition of punishment was very mild. It made it sound like everything, really.
No,
like
so
spilling.
Punishment is having a consequence. Not telling them off. That's not really. You're just telling them something. But a punishment, you know, a negative consequence for doing something. So okay, I'll run through like a typical thing I would do. Yeah. So typical example. I don't know. Like yesterday or day before, Suleiman had these cards, you know, with all different animals on or whatever. And they were all on a pile, and he's picked them up and he's threw them all over the floor. Okay, great example, right?
Yeah. Right.
Now, you could punish him for that. You could say, okay, go to the corner of the room, go to this other room, 5 minutes, stay there. I don't want to see you, talk to you, this and that. So, okay, but I wouldn't do that. What I would do is, I would straight away tell him, if I could physically stop him from doing it, let's say he's
about to do it,
he is about to do it, or he does half of it, he's going to do the other half. I will physically stop him doing it, and I will tell him, no, that's wrong, that's bad, or that's wrong, whatever. And I will my focus is all on getting him to understand that it's a negative thing, he shouldn't do it. Yeah. So just clearly communicating. So what I tend to do is I will go eye to eye with him, and I will look at him and I'll say, that XYZ you did, that's not good. Don't do that again. And then he'll just be like, you know, whatever, looking around or whatever. And then I'll be like, do you understand? And then he has to say yes. He has to confirm that he's received the message. And then I'll leave it at that most of the time. I'll leave it at that. So I just focus on clearly communicating that it's wrong. I might raise my voice. I might be very assertive, but I'm not going to give him a punishment, like hit him, send him to his room, deprive him of fruits or dessert or anything. Like he could Like he could slap me. He's eating, I don't know, an apple. He loves apple. Let's say he could
Right.
slap me, and he's still gonna have his apple, right? Because they're not related in my view. And I think yeah. So that's basically the definition that I'm talking about of like what I would typically do. I just focus on clearly communicating what's wrong and what's not wrong. And I think at his age, that like if we're just focusing on that kind of age group, you know, 2, 3, 4 maybe, I think that's all you need to do really, because they're so new, they don't know what's right and wrong. And even if you've told them 5 times, they might need to be told 10 times to truly get it, okay, to understand it. Beyond that age, when they start to do it even though they know it's wrong, I guess I will come to that. But even then, I question whether punishment would actually make a difference actually.
I think maybe. How old is your Suleiman now?
3.
Oh, that's probably why. That's probably why. Because for some reason I keep thinking they're closer in age, but it's only really this year or a little bit. It's this year really that I've the consequences have kind of been raised, you know.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is because, you know, there's 2 of them and their behavior cycles off each other, you know. It's like that Batari's box kind of thing. Have you ever heard of that Batari's box concept?
No,
It's very simple. It's like if you're heightened, then it's going to heighten me, and vice versa, and it's going to keep going back and forth.
Feedback
If
loop.
you're aggressive, yeah, it's that kind of feedback loop. And if one of them's acting up, the other one's going to act up, and then suddenly the whole house is, you know,
Yes.
noisy and stuff. So yeah, I think with my son at least, you know, negative reinforcement is part and parcel, but positive reinforcement definitely has way better results and outcomes on his behavior. I've noticed. I'll give you an example, and you could tell when he's feeding off of that and he's hungry for that. Because yesterday he memorized the surah of the Quran, alhamdulillah, and it was my wife primarily who's you know, responsible for that. But I could hear them in the morning, like practicing. Anyway, she promised him. He's got this thing, and obviously he's at school, so they always every child at school has got the new hot toy or the new hot thing that they want to share, and like we had Pokemon cards and stuff. They've got this thing called yo-yo cards.
Okay.
And it's like it's basically it's a little kind of fruit sweet thing that you buy from the shop, and it's like 60p, but inside they've got little educational animal cards in them. You know, like it's, you know, it's very
in
like,
the suite. Okay.
In the suite, it's like a Nat Geo thing, and obviously kids want to compare what cards they've got. And he seems to have this thing for it. So essentially, she said to him, "If you can memorize this surah today, or you'll go get a yo-yo card, so to speak."
Yeah.
So when I finished work, he'd memorized it. He was super happy, and then he goes, "Oh, Mum, can I get a yo-yo card?" And she goes, "Go and ask your dad." Now, typically, I would probably say at that time, I'd say, "Yeah, we'll go and get one tomorrow." Do you know what I mean? But because I wanted to capitalize on that moment, I was like, "All right, well done. Go get your shoes on. Let's go right now." I would never really usually do that.
Yeah.
You know, I'd never really go there and then. And he was so happy. And like everything was like, "Okay, let me hold the door for you. Okay, let me hold Ilyas's hand and help him." Oh, he's being really nice, and his behavior changed into this like hungry for praise and hungry for validation and stuff, as opposed to the opposite. When you tell him off and it's a negative thing, it's like very withdrawn and grumpy face and doesn't want to talk to you, and he storms off to his room and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, you know, the differences there. But there are certain things that, like he has certain character traits that he's developing that I'm not fond of, such as sometimes his stubbornness to apologize to his younger brother, you know, and I despise that, and I've typically always be the one to apologize like within 5 minutes of an incident happening, right? I can't hold like a grudge. It's difficult. I can't do that, and I'm very against somebody, you know, holding a silent treatment or not apologizing or whatever. But he's got this thing, and I don't know where he's got it from, and that I'm really like, I will have to make him think deeply about what's happened, or, you know, put some sort of negative consequence in place to encourage him to try and sincerely apologize for something that he's done.
Yeah.
And it could be something like, you know, they're play fighting with the little one, and then he'll like do something malicious or a bit more, you know, like kicking him in the stomach or pushing him over really hard when he's not looking or something like that, you know. Yeah, so I think for you, it'd be interesting to see if you can hold this up when they're getting a bit older. I
Yeah,
really would be
absolutely.
interested,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
mean, of course, it could always change when things change, but I think that I had an element of this. I guess I questioned whether punishments and rewards really, whether they work or not. I questioned it, but deep down, you know, it's a natural thing that we kind of would follow, right? But then this book, you know, kind of pushed me over the edge, and for now, it's convinced me. The book is called Punished by Rewards: The Trouble with Gold Stars, A's, Praise, and Other Bribes. Okay. Now, I wish we had a Wikipedia kind of summary of this, but basically what this book is about is that it's basically saying that when you either use the carrot or the stick, right? They're both there's rewards or there's like anti-rewards, like a punishment. Yeah, what you're doing is you're motivating them to get the thing. So let's say you know, eat your dinner and you'll get a dessert. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're motivating them to get the dessert, right? So you're not training them to eat the food. You're just training them to get the dessert, to do whatever's required to get the dessert. So the focus goes on the dessert. That's the first thing. The second thing is that when there's no dessert, will they still eat the dinner, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And thirdly, what they found is that when you say eat your dinner and you'll get a dessert, the way they eat their dinner is going to be of a low quality, if you know what I mean. Like they're going to like half do it. They're going to do basically a tick box, minimum effort, minimum quality kind of exercise. And the book is packed with actual research that shows this across the workplace, schools and education and parenting, right? It shows that motivating with rewards or punishment, that's the outcome you get. You motivate the people to seek the end thing, right? The reward, rather than like actually being motivated genuinely to do that thing. So for one example he gave is, they had this thing in America, like sponsored by pizza or something, where it's like, read 20 books and you'll get a pizza for your class or whatever. Yeah. And it's like those kids that win that competition, they win the pizza and they keep reading and they keep getting pizza. When there's no pizza involved, are they deeply going to have a motivation to read books for the sake of reading books? No, they're not, right? And then the other thing that they found is that once you remove the pizza, they won't read books at all. They'll just stop. And the third thing is, when they're reading the books to get pizza, they don't read the book well. They don't read it deeply. They skim it more. They're more likely to just do top line job kind of thing. So... Annie, this is what I'm remembering off the top of my head after reading the book, and I thought, yeah, that kind of all makes sense, and so that kind of pushed me over the edge. Where it's like a fourth thing I'll say, a big thing is, I don't want my kids to do stuff because I validate it, or you know, I give them praise that they did something, and therefore they do it, because that will. They'll grow up doing things for other people's validation. I want them to do something because, like, for example, I don't know, my son builds a castle thing with bricks. In that moment, yeah, this is what I do these days, yeah. When he does that and he says, look, Ebby, I did it, yeah, I will not praise him. I have to hold back, right? I don't praise him. Man. I don't validate him. What I do is, this is what the book says, what I do is I will state what he did, and that's enough for him, right? So it's like, you built a castle, and then that forces them to go inside themselves, be like, yeah, I built a castle, and they start to validate themselves, like, so they feel good because they built the castle, not because I praised them. Yeah,
we are so far apart on this.
yeah, I know, but that's why it's a good topic.
Yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, I mean, you know these kinds of people who almost everything they do is for external validation. They live their life for other people's praise and other people's thing. So I know what I'm saying is a bit extreme. I do admit that. But I don't know what the middle ground thing is here, right? Because it's either you do validate or you don't validate. But what I have found when trying it out is that it's not like he's left wanting when I don't praise him. When I just restate what he did, that seems to be enough, right? And so yeah. So anyway, these are like the main points in the book, and it kind of convinced me. And the thing is, there's a lot of research behind all of these things in terms of what I said about the quality of the task, or the fact that they won't do it without the reward, and all of that. So, push me over the edge.
Yeah, I don't think I could do that. I think it's so normal and natural to have both punishment and praise, because that's the fitrah of the world. That is the way that Allah has made this dunya a test, where there is the hope for reward and the fear of punishment, and that continues. You read the Quran and it's Jannah Jahannam, Jannah Jahannam. The mercy of Allah, but also wrath of Allah, and which path of the two are you going to fall into?
Absolutely.
And as the poignant little piece of behind you says, "Kullukum ra'in," you're the leader of that household. You're in charge of that household, and seeking validation from the leader of that household in the same way you would seek validation from a leader of an army, or a leader of a sort of community, or whatever. I think it's really powerful. Like, I absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, was desperately seeking validation from my father throughout my whole life. And actually, but what you said about the fact that having the ability to not require that's how I feel now, where I'm very, very lost internally. Honestly, like, now that my dad isn't here anymore, it's very strange. I think that's why I'm in such a weird crisis right now in terms of like my life goals, my life direction, and all of this sort of stuff. It's like I've got nothing to show my dad, or my dad's not here for me to say, is this the right thing to do? Is this, oh, look, he'll be really impressed with this. Let me show him. Like, I'll have to kind of figure things out for myself. My mum is way more supportive about anything I do, really, as long as it's halal and stuff. Like, she hasn't necessarily, like, I could say to her, oh, I want to start this business, or I want to go and do this job, or whatever. I don't think she'd generally bat an eyelid, as long as she thought I was kind of happy. My dad was the complete opposite, so I'd have to seek validation from him. But now it's like, what do I do? Like, how do I feel? Like, how do I act? It's such a strange alien feeling. And I think that is why sometimes I find it easier to not think about my future or myself anymore, and delete myself as if I've now become a parent and the only thing that matters is my kids. So let me just focus on them, like, pour that energy into them, as opposed to trying to sort out my own life goals and stuff, right? That's probably not the right thing to do. But no, like, do you think of that concept though? Do you think of Jannah Jahannam, that kind of concept, that sort of Allah in that way? And how
exactly, that's the only thing that makes me question it. However, there are like some details to it, right? So Jannah Jahannam, you don't experience them in this life. Yes. So imagine that the punishment that you might give your kids, it's only the promise of a punishment, and it's not a punishment. That's like what Allah gives us in the dunya, yani. We have the promise of a punishment or a reward. We don't have the actual punishment. So in this 50 years life, or whatever, however long we live, we actually don't experience the punishment or the reward. Yes, we just have the hope of it or the fear of it.
It depends on your outlook, though, because one could argue that the effects of sins are also felt in this world as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But we don't have a direct correlation that we know of between our actions and those effects in the dunya. We could assume, like, Aisha said when she got ill, she said, oh, this is because of this. This is what I did. But that's an assumption. It's not a direct correlation. But anyway, that's just the side point, is that it's not exactly apples to apples, because the punishment is not felt in this life, where your behavior is happening in this life, and you're receiving the punishment or the reward after this life. The second thing is, as far as I understand, the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't necessarily have this punishment reward thing. Like, if you see his interactions with children or his wives, there wasn't really an element of punishing them for bad behavior.
Well, I would argue otherwise. Like, the narrations in relation to like children praying and what age they need to pray, and when they reach a certain age they're still not praying, then beat them. And if somebody doesn't come to the Jama'ah, then burn his house down. Do you know what I mean? Like there's this. I could be wrong about that second one, but I remember reading some sort of narration like that, or some sort of historical sort of narrative regarding
Yes.
that. But there was definitely corporal punishments, even sort of you know, educated to the ummah in that regard from the Sharia, and they exist for that purpose. You know, so I suppose, yeah, if you want to specifically talk about children, then it'd be interesting to dive into that.
I mean, like my knowledge of the Sirah is limited, definitely, but there is this book I read. Many people will know the book. It's like Children Around the Prophet.
Oh yeah, I'm listening to that actually. But I haven't listened to it all.
So if you read that book, then I think you'll find that pattern. He did not punish children. He didn't punish them. Like they did something. What's that story, man? Of he asked the Sahabi, yeah, he was a boy at the time. He asked him to do something, give something to someone, or this or that. And then later he found him like playing, and it's like he didn't do it. He got distracted, this and that. And like his reaction was just like, why didn't you do it? Oh, this. And then just like chuckle to himself kind of thing, you know. And it's almost like it was enough. It was enough for that child to recognize that I said I would do it and I didn't do it. And the person I said I would do it to, he do it for, he's not over the moon about it. He's not happy. He didn't hit me, he didn't punish me or anything, but I didn't do it, right? So I acknowledge I didn't do it. And within myself, I feel bad, if you know what I mean, and I don't want to do that again. But anyway, someone with more knowledge could help us with this, maybe.
Yeah, of course.
But this is what I know from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in terms of his actions, with children and with his wives. This is what I understand. However, there are those things like you're talking about. If they don't pray by 10, then hit them and this and that. There are those, but it's just the Prophet ﷺ didn't tend to implement those. Maybe he didn't need to or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because I've seen like my work in the public and stuff. I've dealt with an incredible variety of parents and their children and the issues that they face, and also like completely off the rails children, rebellious children, and then comparing. You know, I had someone come up to me recently asking me for advice in relation to their daughter, and they were essentially like, "Yeah, I don't know what to do anymore. My daughter just goes out every night." And she doesn't tell me where she's going. I don't know who she's with. She doesn't sit with me. She doesn't listen to me. She doesn't talk to me. You know, doesn't want to be around me. Blah 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 blah. And I was okay. Do you sort of put any consequences in place if she doesn't come home by 11 o'clock? 11 o'clock is way too late, but that's the time that they said.
How old is she?
15, I think it was. 14, 15, something along those lines.
It's probably too late for consequences.
Well, the thing is, there was none. There is nothing. You know, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing. I was like, okay, well, who pays for her phone bill and pays for her phone stuff? Oh, I do. I pay for everything. Okay, well, isn't that a consequence that you're in charge of? Can't you do something regarding that?
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a video last night. Dr. Phil. This is another extreme example.
Dr. Phil, classic.
Yeah. But it was like a mother comes on the show, right? And her son, she gives her son an allowance of $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month. He wants his salary to be up to 1,500. He spends all his money on designer clothes. He wants more designer clothes. His ambition is to be a YouTuber. You'll see it. It's on YouTube. You know, we could even react to it one day. And basically, there is zero consequences. He doesn't do anything. He's like, oh, I clean my room. That's why I deserve it. And he's completely like disrespectful to his mom, etc., etc., etc. But there's no consequences. The only reason she hasn't upped his salary is because she can't do so. Physically can't do so. Yeah.
Yo,
but
he's a very expensive cleaner, bro. $1,500 to clean one room.
But think how it got to that point, you know.
Yeah.
And he's developed this mentality of, oh, well, whatever I want, I'll get. Whatever I want, I'll get. You know. And I just think, well, the consequences should have come in way sooner than that. And I see it. I see this theme with so many parents that I've spoken to, where their kids do whatever they want because there are no consequences, and they wake up to that fact that there are no consequences early on. Now, you know, we spoke about you know, children being hit and stuff, this society does not allow for that whatsoever. Okay, and although I'm pretty sure I got smacked as a child, whatever, that was enough for me. But that's not something that we can replicate with my children. Me and my wife, we don't do that, and we can't do that, even if we wanted to do that, because of the way that society is here. What if he goes to school and says, "Oh, I got smacked on the bottom,"
The
or
way the
whatever?
law
It's
is,
just
yeah.
yeah. So you're already forced into that corner, which is fine. You just have to adapt to that challenge. But at least we've still got our old school ways of sort of talking or punishing verbally or whatever, all sorts of things that we try and do, right? But these parents that I speak to don't have that. There is no control. There's no respect because there's no control. And respect is something that's completely washed away anyway by everything else surrounding society and popular culture, and the way that parents are positioned in media, positioned in movies, positioned in the music industry, as boomers and whatever generation is now the parents. Our generation, what are we, like millennials? I suppose millennials are the
Millennial,
parents
yeah.
now. Yeah. Stuff like that, right? And how we're just holding kids back, and we don't understand, and we'll never understand. Bloody hell, I don't understand.
Okay, boomer.
Okay,
Yeah.
boomer.
I mean,
But
age 14, 15, 16, I think that's too late. I mean, most of the positive setup you could have with your kids in terms of them listening to you would be done before that age, innit? Like, if you want to start that at age 14, 15, 16, I mean, good luck with that. I don't think that's doable.
But from what I've noticed, the trend is most parents, the child's behavior doesn't become a problem until that age. Like they might not have
that's
issues
like the
early
more
on.
rebellious age. But I'll tell you something, and this links back to what we said. We were saying about the Prophet ﷺ. Look, there is a natural thing, and this applied especially to the Prophet ﷺ. There is a natural thing that kids want to please their parents. They want to please the people that love them and that give them food and that take them to the park and all of that. That comes naturally, yeah. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was the best of people with everyone, yani, with the kids, with his wives, with the Sahaba, etc. So everyone wanted to please him. Yes, right. It's like with Allah, the highest level is like doing something to please Allah, because I just want to please Allah because Allah is worthy of that ibadah. Yeah, I'm not doing it just to avoid His punishment. It's because Allah is how Allah is. I want to please Allah, right? So similar with the Prophet ﷺ or with parents, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, is like, I want to please my dad. Therefore, when he says no, don't do that, and he says that 5 times, 10 times, like, because he took me to the park yesterday, he gave me this, he did this, he loves me, I genuinely feel he loves me. Like, at some point, I'm just gonna like listen to him, kind of thing. So there's that element, and there's the element of giving your kids attention. And so when you give your kids attention, and you develop a relationship with them, then when they start being rebellious at age whatever, 13, 14, I think you're going to have a lot more on your side in terms of, keeping them in check, if you like, because you have a relationship. Like, imagine a stranger on the street comes up to you and wants to like punish you for littering. It's like, who are you? But what if someone comes to you and they've been like walking to work with you every single day? You've got a bond. You go for coffee together. You got into deep conversations. You cry together. You travel together. And they're like, bro, come on, pick the litter up, man.
Yeah. Well, that can flip on its head though as well, because once you've got too much of a relationship, or a relationship like that, I wouldn't say too much, but a relationship that is close with your child, then the barrier of authority kind of withers away a little. Like, I try and think why I was so scared of my dad, and it could be because we didn't have a very, very close relationship,
Yes.
Whilst compared to my mum, like, my mum would be at home more, I would be with my mum more, we had a very close relationship, but when she told me off, it was nowhere near the same as when my dad told me off.
Yes. Yes.
When my dad kicked off, and my dad, thinking back to it, I don't think my dad's ever hit me. I can't remember my dad ever hitting me. He certainly threatened to, he certainly picked up the slipper, and that was enough. That would terrify me. And I had my family used to make a joke about this. They used to say, I can't remember the term in Arabic, but it was like a saying, like, It's almost like, oh, your tears are always on the ready. Like, your tears are always there, right? It's ready to go. But it only ever happened with my dad. Like, and that was up until like I could be like, bro, I was like married, bro. I remember being married once. I remember once I was married at this point. Like me and my dad had, but no, it wasn't even like an argument. Like it was just like telling me off about something, or like he just like, you know, he's like, oh, you're not gonna listen anyway, or whatever. Like really dismissive because I wasn't taking his opinion or whatever. Bro, I just cried my eyes out, bro. I just couldn't deal with it because, and I was always like that with my dad. I was always very like, it was very difficult not to get emotional when he's, you know, having a go or upset with me and stuff.
Yeah.
Partly probably because of that validation element. But, you know, it was going back to what the topic was in terms of like friendships or
Being
close
close,
relationships. Every 95% of the conversations with my dad were always about serious topics. It was either about Tunisia or it's about my work future. Okay, and because of that,
You mean
everything I
in
spoke.
adulthood?
Oh, even in even like a young teenager, I can't remember conversations when I was younger. Like I don't remember conversations when I was younger, but from like I remember from maybe secondary school onwards. You know, or actually even younger than that. When I was in Tunisia going to school there, it was qraya, 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 you know, education, education, education. That was every conversation, you know. And then going to school here, secondary school here, it was more qraya, qraya, qraya. This is what you need to study. This is what you need to do. So and so's son's done this. This is what you're going to do. So and so's doing medicine. This is what you need to do. And that was it. So when it came to me trying to initiate conversation with him, the only way I felt I could do that is either number one being really goofy and trying to kind of, I don't know, it was like a defense mechanism of being super goofy around him and not being mature, which kind of played on its head because then he thought I wasn't mature enough. But number two is like I would try and speak to him about something that I think he would be impressed with. So you know, he's into, I noticed that he's watching some sort of politics thing or some sort of car or something, and I try and like figure out a way of speaking about that thing. You know, like I saw him talk, like he took an interest in Tesla. So I was like, oh, Dad, yeah, you know what? I'm invested in Tesla. Oh, yeah, and this and that. And he would start being a bit interested. I'm like, oh, my God, yeah, I've got him. It's like I'm fishing, bro.
Yeah.
But like for me to turn over to him and say, oh, Dad, you know, I'm really interested in this particular, bro, I'll give you an example. I remember once I had this memory because I'm dabbling with Pure XI again, right? I remember this day where I picked up my mom and dad from the airport. They'd just come back from Tunisia, maybe, or something like that. And it was 2014, so I was just about to start Pure XI, and I think my dad was driving the car, my mom was driving the car. I took the car to the airport. They jumped in. I was in the back seat. I'll never forget. I was like, "Oh, guys, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you a big announcement." And they're like, "Oh, what is it? What is it?" And I was like, "Starting a clothing brand," and like it was just like silence, bro. It was like crickets, bro, and I was like so deflated. And like my dad, oh, what's that noise? Is that, oh,
Crickets.
that's the crickets. You got that on deck. My dad, I remember like I think he only showed like flashes of somewhat, you know, small flashes of being impressed. You know, the only way my dad, you can tell he was impressed is if he goes, and that's it. Like he wouldn't say it. He wouldn't overtly say it. He would just like not say anything.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
you're saying the distance from your father is what made you seek validation or want to obey him?
And that fear and distance.
Yeah,
I know for me it worked. I can tell for others it might not. Like I could easily have gone down a resentful path. I'm sure I could have. I've never really had that temptation to, but I could have gone down a resentful, I'm going to do whatever I want. In fact, alhamdulillah for Islam, that kind of the biggest time, like the biggest times actually that I challenged and fought with my dad with confidence, even if it was false confidence, and even if I later found out I was wrong, when it came to deen, I started practicing, right? Because that way I felt like I had a backing that was bigger than my dad, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his religion. And I do regret some of the ways that I tried to give dawah to my father when I was young, when I first started practicing. I think we all make those mistakes. I came across too harsh. I came across too heavy. I came across like I knew it all and he didn't, because he hadn't necessarily been very overt about those things for me growing up. I just wrongfully assumed that he didn't know what I was talking about. Or if he had the wrong idea of something, or he had a misunderstanding about a particular part of the faith, it was almost like, oh, he's ignorant and I need to teach him. When actually he's probably got that from somewhere, and he's probably. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So,
Yeah.
That was probably when I had the cojones, so to speak, of challenging him. But yeah, I think age and experience trumps all, doesn't it? And I think he always have that on top of me. He always have age and experience.
Yeah. And the fact that he's your dad.
Yeah, no doubt.
Not directly, but he brought you into this world in a way, right?
Well, it's easy. Look, when you're trying to study the religion for the first time, it's very easy to start seeing parallels between yourself and, I'm like Ibrahim and his father, right? Or like I'm Musa and this is Fir'aun and blah 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 blah, right? And it's so easy to just draw those comparisons instead of actually focusing on how, because this is it. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us time and time again, "Wa bil walidayni ihsana," right? But then all the examples that you see are like, oh, look at Yusuf alayhi salam's father and the way his father treated him. But look at like Ibrahim's father, the way his father treated him. And it's all like me, right? It's all about as if everything you're doing is right and everything everyone else is doing is wrong, right? Oh, he's not like, my dad's not like Yusuf alayhi salam's dad. He's more like Ibrahim's dad, the way he's treating or the way he's doing this, or the way he doesn't want me to go to the mosque or whatever.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine recently, just to wrap this up, but friend of mine recently, he's maybe 25 now, and he was like, his father used to always have a go at him for like going to lessons and extracurricular stuff at the masjid. His father's not very practicing and stuff, but he's still Muslim. But he was always battling. He was always battling his father about these things, right? And actually, he said to me last time I saw him, he said, "You know what? I've switched my entire mentality with my dad. I've realized actually that me going to the extracurricular activity in a masjid, there's less reward in that than me obeying my father who doesn't want me to go, And he said, the moment I started listening to my dad with all these things that don't go against the religion, like your father telling you, no, son, don't go to the masjid for this lesson. Stay with me. I need you here. That's more rewarding, really, actually, than the choice or the optional thing of going for that extra lesson, right?
Yeah.
He said the moment he started putting his father first, the relationship with his father completely transformed. He goes, you know what? When the sheikh calls me or whatever, I tell him I'm with my dad. My dad needs me, or my dad doesn't want me to go, or whatever. As long as it's not a fard. And actually, it's transformed. He said it's transformed his relationship. His dad, like, he's very, very, very close to his dad now. His dad feels like he's being respected, and he has got this competing sort of priority, But yeah, that was a lot of rambling. What do you think?
I think there's a difference between making it clear through actions, through words here and there, that you're proud of your kids, you love your kids, you care about your kids deeply. There's a difference between that and like spending loads of time with your kids and being goofy with your kids. There's a difference. So I think you could have both where, anyway, right? A man should be doing stuff with his life, right? That's part of fatherhood, is accomplishing stuff for your kids to look up to, right? And you're not going to be at home all day, and even though I am, because I work at home, which by the way I think is a bad idea now that I think about it. But so if you're getting stuff done, right? Because remember, part of a man's duty is not just like providing and like spending some time with your kids. Like you've got dawah as a duty, you've got other duties, Yani. So you're going to be out and about. So you might not be, like I said, like really close with your kids in terms of sharing those intimate details, and the familiarity kicks in and then they don't take you seriously. It might not be like that, but it's just the fact that when you are with them, you give them absolute attention, you give them focus, you let them know that you care, right? And then I do believe And I think the Prophet ﷺ is an example of this, that people just want to please you, you know. And it might, by the way, it might take months, if you haven't been like acting this way, it might take months for your kids to kind of turn around their behavior because of this. But if enough times you tell your kids don't do that and they do it anyway, and you just disapprove of it, like you might walk away. You might just walk away, right? They defied you, but you just walk away because you're not needy of them to obey you. Yes, you want them to obey you, but you're not needy of it. So when you turn away because they disobeyed you, if you do that enough times, there will come a time, especially, not especially, but if you're showing them the love, you're showing them that you care, and then you're constantly, when they disobey you, you just like turn away, or you just show some level of disapproval, there will come a day when they voluntarily just want to please you. They want to obey you. That's what I believe. And again, maybe someone more educated than me on the seerah can help with this, but I believe this is what I see in what I know of the Prophet ﷺ, right? That it was always that someone does something terrible to him, or, you know, like, was it Sophia or Aisha who broke the plate in that famous story? She broke the plate. What did he do? He chuckled about it. There's so much we could take from that story, right? But he chuckled about it and he kind of dismissed it. And in the end, like, I'm guessing like he knew that she knew that was like crossing the line, and he didn't need to have some sort of punishment. He didn't need to take her to the other room and give her a telling off. He knew, you know, she wanted to please him. Yeah, she didn't want to do these things to him. So
I mean, you know, this going back to the punishment thing, I've realized, like, when you say it like that, I do realize there's levels to it for me. Like, the worst I've noticed, like the worst thing that my kids could do, I actually don't punish them as much as I would for something a bit less than that.
Okay.
So when there's something like something really big's happened, I'm conscious that I want to blow up. I'm conscious that I don't want to just get. So actually, I go into a bit of a silent, serious trance, and I'll really try and think about it, and then I'll do what you said, like go down to his level and tell him. And I think that actually scares him more than more than the other stuff, because maybe unfortunately we're quite a loud family and we're always a bit loud and stuff. So if you're shouting about something else, like let's say we play fight and shout all the time. Yeah. If we're play fighting and shouting all the time, then if I shout about him not tidying his room, it's just the same decibels.
Yes.
Like there's no difference there, right? But actually, when things are like very, very serious, I can't remember what he did recently. I'm sure it was something like, it was like dangerous, you know, like he could really hurt himself and hurt his brother or something along those lines. Then it got like, yo, I need to get this in his head, you know, in a way that he won't forget. But there's also stuff like he'll do something that I've told him off about before, and he'll turn around and look at me like, oh my God, it's coming. And then I'll let him off. But he's like, not sure if I actually have let him off, because last time I didn't let him off like this. But when I say let him off, it's like just that fear that he's had is a reminder that, look, I know what you did there. Don't do it again, sort of thing, because I'm not going to, you know, explode like last time. But I do like this theory.
It's like in the, you know, when there's like a few guys together, often there'll be one guy who's like, he can't stay quiet, right? It's like he's so needy of people's approval that he's like constantly like cracking jokes, telling stories, boom, 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 boom. And he like,
that's me, bro.
He feeds off people. Really?
Yeah.
I feel like that's not you. He feeds off that approval, whether they're laughing, whether they're like, oh, really, you did that? Oh, yeah, blah, 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 yeah. And then like, that's noise. That's just noise. Yeah. Then the signal comes in. It's just, there's another guy who'll just be like, one sentence, mic drop kind of thing. So, and you take that guy more seriously. Same with like public speaking. They say to speak slowly, because the one who speaks slowly, it shows confidence, because it's like, what I'm saying, every word of what I'm saying is important. It's well thought out. It's worthy of your attention. But the guy who's just like spitting bars, he's going to get ignored, because the way he's talking gives off that thing that words are cheap to him. He's just throwing them out.
Yeah, no doubt. Although, like I was going to say, the theory I might have is, I feel like we're a bit the parent-child relationship is very heads and tails, because I always feel like you're compensating for what you didn't have as a child, and then
Yeah.
giving that to your child, but then your child then ends up the same way as your parent, and it's a cycle that repeats itself. Like, my dad, from what I hear, was very spoiled. Okay, very spoiled. Um, but when I hear stories about my granddad, everyone I know says, I've never met my granddad, but everyone I know says he's like me in this. He's like you. Oh, he's just like you. You're just like your granddad. Just like your granddad. Just like your granddad. Right? And now, like, because my dad treated me in a particular way, I feel like I'm trying to overcompensate with my child. So I'll tell him that I love him, like, all the time, right? I'll praise him for the stuff that he does all the time. I'll try and acknowledge his achievements all the time, no matter what they are. And I'll try to be super supportive, whatever it is that he wants to do all the time, which one could argue is spoiling it. Okay. Which is the same thing that happened to my dad. And I worry, like, oh, is my son, not worry, but, I'm not saying it's bad to grow up like my dad, but I wonder, is my son now going to grow up like my father and become like my father, and he's like his granddad, but then his children are like
Another
me.
cycle.
And it's like this thing, it's this cycle. And I do think there is something to be said about it. I'm sure if it was looked at, because, how often do you hear that saying that, oh, I always I want to do what my parents didn't do for me, or whatever, and
Yeah.
certainly this thing about validation. Like, I try and overly validate my son just because I'm conscious of the fact. And even the you said earlier about spending time together, like, the work from home thing is very skewed things a lot, to the point now where, like, if I spend one day and I haven't been at home, I, like, feel super guilty. And it ruins my, like, mood, and I'm like, oh, I haven't been with my kids today. Like, what kind of dad am I? I'm awful. Like, I haven't been there. When actually, when I wasn't working, or I'm a bit more flexible now, but when I was not working from home whatsoever, it very much was normal for me to just come home and spend a few hours before bed, and that was it. But now, like, I haven't been home all day. Like, what the hell? Oh, I'm gonna go to the gym now. No, I can't go to the gym. I haven't been at home. Do you know what I mean? Like, these kind of things, right? So it's interesting how that can be skewed. And I do agree, I think, now in retrospect, that there is a lot more benefit in being separate from the family for a majority of the day. But as long as when you are there, you do put that effort in, and not just on your phone, but you're all engaged with whatever activity they're doing, or
Absolutely.
part and parcel of that.
Absolutely. And I think, obviously, Yanni, we shouldn't dismiss the lessons we learn from our parents and what they did well and what they could have done better. But again, that might keep us in the cycle of trying to compensate. Oh, I missed out on this, so I want to make sure I do that for my kids, and blah blah blah. But the ultimate thing is to go to the Prophet ﷺ, because there's no cycle in that other than virtue, right? It's like, so if there's something that you might have taken X from your dad, that I want to be a parent like this because I learned X from my dad, but the Prophet ﷺ, he did Y. Well, then you're gonna know, like, okay, Y is actually, the right way. And it's like, I learned a lot about these things from the Prophet ﷺ, like, in terms of changing my paradigm, like my experience of parenting and stuff. It's like from my parents, and then a lot of the parenting stuff that I've observed in life, I feel like it was just during visits to Algeria, because I don't know, I didn't have like family friends where I was living, and I didn't observe much parenting, I feel, So a lot of it, I feel, comes from what I observed from my family in Algeria and from my own parents. So I've got that reference point. But then sometimes when I see the Prophet ﷺ, for example, the point I made where he's very laid back. He didn't explode into anger. His anger, if you probably read this in a few hadith, when he was angry, it just showed on his face. That was it.
Yeah.
Yes? And because he was so select in his words and in his behaviors and in how he carried himself, it was from the little nuances that if he was pleased or angry, right? And so you get that, but then you contrast that with what my models of parenting or family life, and it's like, well, Algerians, they all explode, they all smack their kids, right? So which one am I
Right.
going to take? So the Prophet ﷺ, when you learn about how he treated people, like that's why I love learning about the Prophet ﷺ in his family or social life, right? In his how he kept relationships. I find that stuff fascinating because sometimes it's really contradicts what I might have previously defined as a proper Muslim way of behaving with kids or with your wife. Like that was my standard, right? Oh, everyone I know who is a parent is like this. They're all Muslims, right? They're all Muslims, so that's the right way. That's the traditional way. But we've got traditional, which is 50 years ago, and then we got traditional, which is 1400 years ago. So which one
Yeah.
would I pick? And really,
Yeah.
this was a paradigm shift for me. You know, obviously in researching the book as well, like how to be with your wife. You know, there is the whole there is a certain lesson you'll learn from your parents' generation about how to treat your wife, and there's a very different lesson you'll learn from the Prophet ﷺ sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
those things blow my mind.
It'd be interesting to see, wouldn't it, if there was really good studies about the nature and nurture debate as well, because I always wonder how much is of somebody's personality is genetics and how much is just pure exposure. Is there even any room for genetics in personality? Do you know what I mean? That's the question I've always had. Like, you know, they say, oh, you're just like your dad or you're just like your granddad or whatever. Is that because you've been exposed to them and you picked that up? Or is there something beyond that that's actually a genetic thing? Like, I'll never forget my mum always saying that, because mum will observe my kids and see the similarities or see the dissimilarities. And
Yeah.
like, you know, my son, Elias, for example, he's the younger one. He doesn't sit still. You know, you can't put him down and expect him to stay there. Okay. Whilst my mum would say about me, she might have rose tinted glasses about the past, but she says like she would put me down in one place, and I would still be there when she comes back. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't disappear. I didn't misbehave. I didn't do any of this stuff. That was just like some sort of disposition. But is it a disposition or is it something I picked up? And I've always wondered that, like, yeah, it could be like in those really early stages, that first year of a child's development, their personality develops there through observation or whatever. Or it could be that there are genetically inherited characteristics of somebody's behavior, or beyond that, like the soul, right? The way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a soul, and maybe
Yeah.
there is a personality element of each soul. Are we like iPods that are factory reset when we're born and we just do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, are we some sort of digital device, like a blank slate where everything is imprinted on us in the
Yeah.
dunya? Or do we
I don't
carry
think so.
beyond the physical and appearance stuff? Do we actually carry character traits genetically? Or I don't know, divinely inspired character traits, so to speak. Like Allah has shaped our personality in a way that is preordained prior to us attending this jama'ah or the dunya, so to speak. Like that really does interest me, because I try and think, you know, how much of my son's behavior is because of him observing me, as opposed to, oh, he got that from his granddad, you know, or he got that from my dad, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, like here's an example. Like I'm a grown man, but when my son speaks, and I compare that to a video I have on my phone of me at his age, there's like a hour-long video of me that my mom recorded when I was like 4 or 5, and she's just recording me on an old school camcorder, and I'm just singing songs and talking and telling stories. And you put a video of my son at the same age, put me to side to side, and there's little things that I'm sure I don't even do anymore. Allah knows best. There's little flashes where you just see me and him are the same person. Little things he does with his eyes, or little, even like physical twitches or mannerisms, or certain inflections in the way he speaks and
Yeah.
stuff. And I wonder, like, do I still do that now? And he's picked it up from me, or is this really like genetics at play?
Yeah.
And that fascinates me. That stuff fascinates me. And if you've got the ability to, I don't know if you've got footage and stuff from when you were younger, but bro, honestly, do that. Like, play them side by side. Maybe I'll get a video for you. I'll get a video for you privately. Try and get a video of my son and a video of
Yeah,
me when
do
I was at the
it.
same age.
Do it.
And it's like, on some of the graphic design videos I've been putting up, the little video that plays before I start the tutorial or time lapse is a little video of me at my son's age. Like a lot of them were recorded that age. But like my uncle sees those videos, he's like, "Whoa!" Like I see a lot of Suleiman in you, or a lot of you in Suleiman, or whatever. So that fascinates me. That stuff really blows my mind, bro. And I kind of like, if it is the fact that some of this stuff is inherited beyond your control, it does ease the pressure off a little bit. It's like, well, this is just the card I was dealt. You know, this is it.
I feel like it's both, right? You get some stuff from nature and some from nurture, but I think it's a lot more nurture than nature.
Yeah.
And sometimes nature will not kick in without the right circumstances. So
Yeah.
you might have certain setting in your phone, right? When it's brand new, the setting is there. If you don't go into the settings menu and switch it on, it won't ever activate. It won't ever manifest on the phone, that feature, whatever it is. And the thing that could go deep into the settings and turn it on is an environmental thing that can switch things on, which is kind of like the whole mental health thing, right? Mental illness. You could be predisposed to get depression, for example, but if the environment doesn't line up like that, then you won't get it. And if it does line up, well, you're predisposed, so you'll get it, when someone who's not predisposed might not get it. So I believe factually that is how mental illness does work. And it could be the same with certain character traits, you know, like, I don't know, how quick you are to blow up, or like in terms of anger.
Yeah.
I definitely see, I think everyone does, they see a lot of mannerisms they have in their kids. Like,
Yeah.
but that's a bit different because you were comparing what you were like at like 4 and what your son's like at 4.
Yeah, because it's a concept whether he's picking it up from me. Do I still have that now?
Yeah, because if
Or
you
is
don't
it,
have it
you
now,
know?
then where did it come from? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know what? Actually, going back to what you said, if we were to flip it on its head, is it like, let's say physical appearances here, and personality traits and the subconscious are there, right? We could argue physical appearance in the womb, like physical appearance from the start of one's life, is almost entirely genetic. Okay. But as you get to the end of your life, a lot of that has become environmental as well.
Yes.
It's what you've eaten, it's the cuts and grazes and the lifestyle and all this sort of stuff.
Yes.
Whilst maybe the opposite is true for personality. Maybe personality at the start is completely untouched because you haven't been out in the world yet, right? And then you start picking it up whilst you're born, picking up stuff whilst you're born, and when you're born and you're learning, you're pulling, you're adapting stuff. But as you're getting older, more genes are switching on, you know, your body changes, your mind grows and stuff, and these genes that are switching on are pulling instructions also from your genetic heritage. And actually, by the end of your life, yes, majority of your stuff is because of your life experience, but maybe there's a certain element of that is because of, you know, some sort of genetics or whatever.
Yeah.
That's just a crazy theory.
I
I've
mean,
got no
what-
evidence to back that up, but it'd be interesting.
The question is, like, what makes up your inherent character or personality? I think it's out of bit above our pay grade, right, to really truly bring a factual answer. But like, before you're born, your personality can be influenced by stuff like how noisy the environment is where the mother is. That could make a baby more anxious or more loud or more quiet, right?
Yeah.
Like, we know that babies psychologically will get influenced before they're born, right? They can hear, how many months into their growth can they hear? I think like 4 months, like quite early, you know. If they can sense stuff, then they can take on stuff from that. But then there might be a factor of just Allah giving, I mean, the soul itself, right? The soul existed before the body. So does the soul without the body, does the soul have a personality or character traits? It could be, right? Because like, we lived before this life.
As a non, you know, I'm not a a muqallid, or I'm not the expert at all. But because you read the Quran, you see the examples of the prophets, and you see that they did have different personalities in a lot of ways. Like compare the difference between Musa alayhi salam and I don't know, Isa alayhi salam, right? Generally speaking, there's difference in personality there. Look at the Isra al Mi'raj, right? Look at the difference of when all the different prophets were interacting with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you could see their personality. Especially
Yeah.
Musa's a prime example of a different personality, right?
Yeah.
I think the fact that Allah has displayed or given us an example of those different personalities highlights to me that there is something to be said of the natural diversity of personalities, and there isn't like this golden path in the middle when it comes to personalities, that everyone has to be a carbon copy when it comes to personalities. I think everybody has sort of a proponency for a certain thing, a certain like, a certain dislike, a certain behavior, certain attitude. I think there's a wide berth. I think the straight path is as slim when it comes to personality as some people may perceive it to be. However, obviously the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best of the creation. So the closer you can get to that, the better. But Allah knows best, maybe you're rewarded accordingly to how difficult that transition to that becomes. For example,
absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, for example, it could be very easy for me to behave like Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this particular way, whether it's like being gentle with somebody who's wrong.
Like I can't even get angry even if I try.
Yeah. You know,
which
or like
is
what I said earlier about
big trial for a lot of people.
What I said earlier about like apologizing, like for me, I find it very, very easy to apologize. It's not like a big thing in my chest. I don't have this pride element where I'm like, I struggle. But boy, have I met people that just cannot and will not, and something just blocks them from doing that. And I do, but Allah knows best. Once again, I say Allah knows best every time. I don't think I'll be rewarded as much for apologizing as the person who really, really cannot do it and does it. You know, I don't feel like that's unjust at all. Of course not, because that's not really a challenge for me as it is for them. You know, it's like the person who's got lots of money and donates £1, and the person who's got, £2 and donates one of them. It's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's the kind of outlook I'm thinking of.
Sometimes I wish, like, Mad Mamluks, they've got what's his name, Sheikh Amir. I wish we had a Sheikh Amir, where it's like we're just here talking rubbish, and then we got the Sheikh to check us.
We're like, oh, we'll get refuted, bro. We'll be like, Sheikh, I got 168 episodes. Can you just go through them before you come on to the next show? You could have like a whole receipt of stuff.
That would be legendary, bro.
That'd be great.
Get Mufti on it. Get Mufti as our the co-host.
That's it. Once we have that sponsorship, bro, then we can pay for his time. And then, that's the way it is. That's the way it has to be.
Imagine he does like 100 episodes with us, and we paid him for each one.
Why not? Bro, he'd love coming on. He'd be like, when's the next episode, boys?
Let's start doing 2 a week.
Absolutely. No, do you know what? I think, I would really like that. I'd really like to have, a semi-regular, even a student, everyone's a student of knowledge. Even the shuyukh that we say are shuyukh, they consider themselves student of knowledge. But
a serious guy, basically.
Yeah, a serious guy, I think.
Unlike me.
Hey, if there's someone who is serious and they're listening to the show, you'd be surprised, bro. Some people come up to me and they're like, oh, love your podcast. I'm like, what? Why do you know me?
You can't refer yourself. Someone must refer you. You can't be like, I'm a sheikh. No, you're not.
I'm a sheikh. But some people have to have the confidence to say, I think Mufti would say, I'm a student of knowledge.
Well, student's fine.
He must say, no, I think he says, one of the websites I saw, he said scholar. But I think, obviously, no.
But again, scholar has a meaning as well. Scholar means you're
I know that's what I'm trying to say.
You're an expert student of something.
Yeah,
but that's in English. That's in English.
In English. Yeah, in English.
Let's see, scholar definition. Yeah, scholar is a specialist in a particular branch of study. Simple as that.
Exactly.
Right, but that's English. In Arabic, I think the word people tend to want to, what's it? Equivalate. That's not a word, but they would say scholar is alim. But I think in Arabic, like alim would have a different kind of definition than this.
Yeah.
But man,
Mufti's website, which is very.
You know, my friend was
very,
telling
very
me,
nice website.
my friend studied with him in Medina, right? And he said sometimes we would go study in his house. So we go to his house, and he's in his office, and you go in the office, yeah. All four walls are full of bookcases, full of books.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the floor has piles of books because no space. So he has to put them on the floor in piles. And he said we used to sit like this sometimes, yeah. We have to sit on the floor being careful, like not to touch the piles of books because they're going to fall.
Right.
Yeah. So we're like this, sitting, and we've got our notebook like this, or we're reading from the book.
Yeah.
And we're just like this, like, and if you, sometimes you go like that and you hit the books and they fall, you know? So that's how many books he had, man. And he said, sometimes we'd go, we're like studying like Bulugh al-Maram or something. And, but we walk in and Mufti's like, you see that book there, that one there? Yeah. Okay. Up. Yeah. That one, take it out. Okay. Read from it. So then sometimes you go on a whole new tangent and they're just reading this new book they never heard of. And then he's like, Abdullah, what do you think about that? And you have to have an opinion. You're not allowed to not have an opinion.
Yeah.
And then he'd be like, so what would you say about what he said? And he just forces like discussion. And they do a whole, like, instead of doing their Bulugh al-Maram next page kind of thing, they would be going on this tangent, but he'd be pushing them, you know? And he has a stick, and if you don't read properly, then you get it.
No way.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't know if I should say this, but yeah.
It's fine. It's good. I'm trying to find where I saw it because I feel like I've misquoted what I said about the scholar thing. But I definitely felt like I saw it somewhere.
Yeah, but maybe he didn't write that anyway, right?
Yeah, well, this is it. His website, I think, is refreshed because now it's written in the third person, so someone else has written it. It doesn't say scholar; it says something else, big long paragraph, which is a lot safer to do. I can't remember where I saw that, but even when I saw it, I was like, oh well, that's clearly the English interpretation. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. That's just long-winded nonsense that people stress over. It's just words, just benefit of the individual. Stop complicating it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, man.
Let's wrap it.
But just to say, but he put up a clip recently on his Instagram about his father and how his father had basically shaped who he is today.
Yes.
And that power of
I bet his father didn't punish him, bro.
I don't know about that, but like his father had books all over the house, like books, and his mother encouraged him to read, and it was that love for books that they instilled on him, and all around, like they were surrounded. The clip was talking about the environment that you're in, and he grew up in an environment that was surrounded with books, and it reminded me of what you said. Now you go into his arena and there's books everywhere, right? Yeah, so definitely powerful thing to think about off the back of what we just spoke about. The environment is going to influence the child.
Sometimes I was thinking about that a week or two ago. Like, I don't read Quran in front of my son ever because I can't focus if he's around. He's going to be climbing on me, swinging on me. I'm very easily distracted. So I'll probably like read in the masjid instead. But I was like, well, where's that part that I used to imagine where he's seeing me often reading?
I'm the opposite, I think, when it comes to that. Because I have the Quranly app, little plug. I will read. I didn't used to read so loudly and overtly. I think I used to be very shy when I first started. But then that veil of like, oh, this is going to be riyah, whatever. Like, you know, that fear, oh, I'm showing off. That completely got stripped away when I became a parent. You know, I couldn't really do that in front of my wife before because I just felt like, oh, I don't want to be considered the showing off. But now, bro, like my intention is very clearly like, hey, I want them to see that Quran is in this house. This is a thing that their dad does, you know, or even if we're driving in the car and I put the Quran on. Oh yeah, I remember that. Because I'll never forget, before I was a parent, a friend was always like, oh yeah, my dad used to put all these nasheeds on when I was younger. And he remembers them now and he got them all in his head. So I was just like, oh, I want my son to, like when he's older, to remember that I used to play Quran in the car, or remember me as being able to read the Quran in the house and that kind of environment, you know? So he has a nostalgia for these things. He's trying to break into my room. Huh? He can't come in anyway. I've got a big barrier.
Okay, let's end it there, inshallah. Short and sweet.
Inshallah.
If you want to contact us, contribute to us, email us, go to mindheistpodcast.com. And yeah, truly, you know, if you have any suggestions for guests, then let us know. And let us know as well. You can join the Telegram group where we can, you know, maybe discuss punishing, no punishing, nurture, nature, all these things we can discuss over there. And
there's two of them in there. There's one.
Yes, we have both links in the description, inshallah. Yeah. And yeah, Muhammad, let's get this thumbnail now. Because the whole episode, you know, the mic's been in here. Oh, it's pixelated, unfortunately. Great, bro. Cheesy smile. Okay, subhanak Allahumma bihamdik, shadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.